Welcome, welcome. Hi, welcome to Silhouette Patterns, our webcast tonight. This is a cool date, 6/18/18. Kind of neat that it's just a little reiteration there. We have a wonderful, I hope, night of learning for all of us, and that it will just I really enjoy these questions, answers. The questions, the answers, I think they just clarify. I think as a teacher, sometimes I just don't say it right, or I don't emphasize the right part, and this gets us a chance to kind of bring it all together and just really clarify. So I do really appreciate you all being here. It's going to be fun. When I first had an opportunity to do PBS, I felt a large sense of responsibility, mainly to get across to the viewer what I felt like were the issues. And I'll never forget having a discussion one night with my brother, and he's very analytical, and he kind of really helped me formulate exactly what I wanted to say. And because we have gained so many new people, and there's so many new people adding on, this is a great time to kind of regroup, and I want to go over that beginning. I think there's been lots of fit to stitch programs out there, but if you miss the beginning, we really only do it in each first episode of each series. And so I kind of want to take a minute and just go over that. The question is often asked, do you sew? And someone comes back and says, yes, I do. And that question and that answer is grossly oversimplified. And so I think for all of us, I want to point out what the question should really be and what the answers would be to clarify. So the analogy that I use is in building a home. And when you build a home, first you go to an architect, and the architect sits down and draws everything out and asks you questions about what you want and creates a style and the design, yada yada. And then he hands those plans that he's so beautifully drawn to the engineer, and the engineer makes sure that it's structurally sound so that everything functions and operates, and engineering wise it actually works. Because what we know is sometimes architects come up with ideas that aren't logical or can be put into play, and then again they pass all that information on to what we know as the builder. And in my little analogy, this is my architect, and this is the compass represents my engineer, and this little drill represents the builder. And on the set of PBS, they were teasing me. They kept saying, where are the toys? Where are the toys? Get the toys. These are not toys, okay? These are important. So when we sew, there are the same three facets, or divisions, I'm going to call them. The first thing we have is the designer. And the designer, now again, really where I made this first separation was way back when I was in college, because if your major was fashion design, you didn't take any pattern classes, you took design courses. And if your major was fashion merchandising, then your courses were completely different, where somebody would say, but they're all sewing related. They are, but one does not need to know the other hand. So this designer, many designers I've worked for over the year know nothing about patterns. They don't have a clue. They're creative minds. They're et cetera, et cetera. So this designer is the architect. And then we have the pattern maker, and the pattern maker is the engineer. They're the ones that make sure that the design is practical, that it can be worn on the body and moved, and all of those other things take place. And then, of course, the builder actually is the seamstress. So when we say, do you sew, you recognize that they're really asking this question that encompasses all three of these areas. And while the answer is very simple, yes, it doesn't mean I know patterns. It doesn't mean I'm good at mixing fabrics or creating fabrics or all of those other things. So our goal as sewers is to, number one, understand this. If we ask ourselves, where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses, then we know the area that we have to maybe get help on, or be careful when we enter that area. But when we get into our arena where we know we're strong, then we're ready to go. When someone is learning to sew, generally they're learning the machine skills in and of themselves. and hopefully learning the fitting, and then hopefully learning to work with fabric and pattern. The main reason I point these out is, number one, for you to be patient with the process. We're not just learning to stitch on the sewing machine, we're learning so much more. And obviously what I love about the process is there's a lot involved. There's right and left brain skills that are involved. And so I think it's such a great hobby for me. I love it because it just really broadens my horizons, and I learn so many other things new. And then when I go to redecorate a house, hey, I get it. I know who to call for help. Okay. I know when I'm shorthanded and where I need to call someone. So as we brought in these questions tonight, the reason I wanted to really redefine how I view sewing is because we've put the questions into those categories. So first we'll talk about this design process, and then we'll go into the patterns, and then we'll go into sewing. Now, and the reason I think it's beneficial is as you watch this or maybe rewatch it, you'll come back and say, oh, I don't need to know anything about that. I'm going to fast forward it to this section, or I know everything I want to know about X. I'm going to go to this. All right, so that's the setup for these questions tonight. And like I said, as they came in, I went ahead and put them into the category that I felt they were best suited. So we're going to start with question number 1. And what we did tonight is just so that we know that many of us are visual learners. We have the questions coming up on the screen, so you can read them along as I read them, and hopefully it'll land in your brain a little bit better. Okay, so question number 1, I made a pair of leggings that turned out great. I measured a pair I had, measured the pattern to determine the size to make, and they could not have turned out better. I wanted to make another pair. The fabric I chose was a bit thicker and did not have quite so much stretch as the first pair, so I went up a size only to find I should have gone up about 3 sizes. I think I got lucky that the fabric I used for the first pair was similar to the pair that I had made in my closet. I just realized that through the process of looking back and reflecting. So my question is there a rule of thumb or way to determine, based on the stretch of the fabric, how much change up or down in size? I feel sure there is a simple answer to this that I am just missing. There's not a simple answer. So maybe the good news and the bad news is there's not a simple answer. However, what I can do is I always want to notice, does fabric have stretch in one direction or both directions? Let me just say before I answer this question that fabric pattern combination has become complex. As we go back 20 years, there used to be one type of stretch fabric and one kind of woven fabric. And another 20 years before that, there was simply no stretch fabric. Woven was woven was woven. I always used the same size. I always went to the same thing, and it always turned out the same way. The beauty of today is I have lots of variety in fabrics, and the difficulty of today is I have lots of variety of fabric, especially when it comes to knits. I have lots of different kinds of knits. So the categories really are a woven and a stretch woven, and then we have our knits. And within our knits, we have our one-way and our two-way stretches. Those really, if I keep it simple, those are my 4 categories. And from the woven to all the way to the two-way are my degrees of stretch. If my fabric has one-way stretch, then I would take the pair, the leggings pair that I had already made, and stretch that. And I always use this 4 to 6 analogy because I think it's effective. So a slight stretch goes 4 to 4.5, an average goes 4 to 5, and a super goes 4 to 6. So that means if I take 4 inches between my fingers and stretch as far as that fabric will go, then those are the 3 categories: 4 to 4.5, 4 to 5, and 4 to 6. So does that make it easy? No, but it helps you a little bit. But I would recommend that, I've told you, wrap this around your body, pull it. I know for some of you, it just doesn't feel like that works for you. Then get a base and recognize you just had those 2 types of knits. There's probably not any more than those 2 types. So yes, you didn't get where you wanted to be with that one, but chances of you doing that wrong again, slim to none. So that's the good news. All right. I'm going to go on to question number 2. And it's because where we're going along is there's the same few questions, and they're going to come back several different times in several different ways, but I want you to see that. Would you please demonstrate how less experienced sewers can determine whether to go up or down in size when selecting a size for a specific knit fabric? In the Terrific T-shirts video, you mentioned something about wrapping the knit around your body, but didn't follow through to what to do with it afterwards. What information do I look for wrapping a knit around my body, and how do I translate that information in size selection? I understand negative ease varies according to personality, but I know from personal experience that a rayon or ITY knit made up in the same size as a cotton knit do not fit the same. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. The answer is number one, you should wrap it around your chest or you should wrap it around your hips. Those are the two portions of the body. That's all you need to wrap it around. Patterns, if it were a perfect world to me, all patterns would be finished garment measurements. We know that's not the case, but it is important for you to know what your patterns, whatever pattern you're using, what the finished garment is. The reason being is if I have two women and they both literally measure a 40 bust, they both literally measure the same bust, and one is 20 years old and one is 60 years old. What we know, I used to use that analogy when I was 50, and when I was 60 sounded really old, and now I'm 60 and I'm like, wow. Anyway, that just hit me. The two don't want to wear their blouse the same. You get that. So, but if I look on the back of a pattern where they say a 36-inch bust makes this size, 40 is her size, then neither one of those ladies will probably be happy with the outcome. So however you do it is up to you. But what I'm saying to you is if you do not know what your pattern measures finished, it is like shooting in the dark. You have no clue what you're going to make, and you have no clue what the end result will be, and size selection to me becomes invalid. So if you wrap a knit around your body and then pull it, and even if you put the, kind of pin it in place and put it to the side and see where you like it, and then take it off and measure between your pins, you will get a very good idea as to if you're in the correct size or what size you want to choose from, if you can choose from finished garment measurements. Now keep in mind that knowing that, let's say I decide that 36 is my perfect knit circumference, go up a little bit. Go, maybe just cut a 38, because I can always take it down if it's too small. Rapid weight loss is not advised. So that is not going to work. So that's just an FYI. Do wrap it around your body, but just pay attention to what you want finished. I'm going to bring your attention to, on our website, on the features button, we all kind of nickname it the Brett chart, but it says garment measurements. I cannot emphasize, many of you, like I go to workshops and somebody will have this and it's all filled out, and somebody else comes along and says, what's that? So I'm going to bring it to everybody's attention so that you know where it is. This was a chart that Brett did for you all because he felt like it'd be really helpful if you had those numbers. First off, if you went through the process, and then if you had those numbers in front of you. So if you go on our site all the way to the features, which is the last tab, click on that. In the center column, it says garment measurements, or finding your garment measurements, or something about that. And if you open that up, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and what you'll find is all kinds of questions that you should know. As a sewer, I say often, how are you possibly going to make a blouse for yourself if you don't know what you like? Now, many of you don't like that question, and I can't apologize enough for it, except that you should probably know the answer. Many of you do not, and I say if you don't know those answers, take some time, pause your sewing portion, and spend some time recognizing what those answers should be. Okay? You will get to your finished product not only quicker, but you will like what you are sewing rather than having stumbling blocks along the way. Okay? Okay. Question number 3. Pattern 175 and number 312 are knit slopers for ITY, or my knit slopers, are my knit slopers for my ITY fabric. How do I adjust the patterns for less stretchy or more stretchy fabrics? Okay, now keep in mind that most of the time when we're talking stretchy, I'm going to take you back to L, C, and D. Most of the time stretchy is C. So I'm only adjusting my size. Keep in mind that if I'm close, I'm always better to err on the side of large, because then I can bring it back. Now when I say large, it doesn't mean a whole bunch, but just if I'm contemplating between two, go to a little bit larger, because it will help you make sure it's not too small. All right, so adjust the C. There are times when if I have a two-way stretch fabric, and if it's real stretchy, then my length gets affected also. Usually that's a very easy thing to fix after the fact. Circumference is not so easy. Okay? All right. How do I adjust the patterns for less stretchy or more stretchy fabric? I wouldn't adjust the pattern. I would simply go down in size or up in size and be careful where you're going. Okay? Now, again, I want to stress to you or point out to you or remind you of a Sharpie marker. When you take a Sharpie marker, I'm just going to grab this right here, and I literally mean Sharpie, the brand name Sharpie. And when I put my tissue down and I mark the Sharpie on top of my tissue, the markings will transfer through to the fabric below. Obviously not if it's a black or, but if it's any kind of fabric, most fabric, the Sharpie will go right through the tissue. It will not tear the tissue, it won't ruin the tissue, but I can trace that tissue right onto my muslin, whatever muslin I'm using, and then I can make that up without cutting my sizes for my tissue and preserve my tissue. Okay, questions on these? To me, these are all design questions, knowing my fabric, understanding it, what I can do with it. Keep in mind that even though there's lots of knits out there, they really fall into the categories of a one-way or a two-way. There's not a million variables of two-way or a million variables of one-way. They fall into those categories. So you're not going to be having sizes all over the place. You'll probably have 2 or 3 sizes based on your knit, and then another for woven, but you're dealing with different patterns that are woven that are knit. I mean, a lot of times I switch them around, but that's simply, we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so wrap the knit around your body to see how comfortable it is for you. It's not really comfort. It's not a physical comfort. It's a mental comfort. When we talk negative ease, we're really talking a mental comfort as opposed to physical. Physical would only be if it was extremely too tight. This is a mental comfort. I watched your All About Tops episode a while ago, but you have not been able to view it lately. What width do you recommend for knit neck bands? I don't have a recommendation for knit neck bands. That's style. It's your choice. I don't think there's a one right answer for that type of thing. Okay? All right. All right, so having said that, let's go to question number 5. And I know they're not in order here, but it's just simply because of how I grouped them once they were all printed out. It was easier to group them after the fact. Okay, I've just been watching QVC and seeing the same garment on very tall models and shorter models and how different the look is. This has made me realize just how proportions can affect the overall look and how heartbreaking to have made a garment and not like the result. Proportions are such an important thing to consider before starting a project, but what are the rules? Too important to be left for chance. I'm wondering how many sewists are aware of this pitfall. Is there any advice you could give us to help us in this area? I can, because proportions to me are very important. We have a book. It's called My Very Best Dressed Me. And if you wait until, tomorrow, we'll mark it down. It's normally $19.99. We'll mark it down to $14.99. The book is probably fairly crude. It was a book I wrote many years ago, and it was the first book I'd ever done. We self-published, yada yada. The message that is there is accurate, and it is good, and it is helpful. So I think it's important to be aware. And there are 4 principles that I'm using when I dress, and I should always consider those principles. And as a sewer, we have the advantage, if we know these principles, to pull them in together while I am sewing or creating. They are, if we go back to our categories, they are really our design principles. And that's the reason I wanted the information out there in the first place. It was not any information I created. John Malloy, if you remember many years ago, wrote a book called Dress for Success. The principles are timeless. I just simply reiterated them in a different way because John Malloy's book is no longer available as far as being currently published. All right, so number one is line, to create a line. And always, and I've said it many times, vertical line is always better than horizontal. If I can create the vertical, eliminate the horizontal, that's my goal. Number two, to create a focal point in your dressing. Anytime I dress, I want to create a focal point. My focal point should be the face, especially when I'm going into business, when I'm going, just not even business, anything. A public place, to me, deserves the focal point to be the face. It's your decision. Contrast is what creates focal point. So we need to be careful in our dressing that we don't, put a contrast at the bottom of our blouse, because then everyone's looking at our hips. So these are the principles that we should really know, understand, and then we can apply them. Then there's color placement on the body. There's an adage that says white pants make you look heavy. White pants don't really make you look heavy. It's simply that the eye goes to the light. And whenever that's the case, if it's on the bottom, you get looked at the bottom and it's more noticeable. Certainly there's the fact that white reflects light and black absorbs it. There's that. But just keep in mind, where do I want to place lighter colors on the body? And the fourth, probably what she's referring to here, is what we call proportions. And that when we dress our body, everybody out there is 8 heads high. We did a PBS show, and you guys have not seen this whole series, but we had an artist come in and teach us how to analyze the body and how to dissect it, and et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted you to hear it really we had the Dallas Institute of Art, one of the teachers there. I wanted you to hear it from the perspective of, first off, she has her master's, and that she is an artist and teaches and deals with this every day. Not so much from my perspective. I know her to be accurate in her information, but anyway, her presentation is incredible. So we know the body is 8 heads high, and then how that body is divided with our clothing is very important to either be halves, thirds, fourths, or fifths. So anything that is too long is going to shorten us, and the correct proportions are going to enhance us. And that's the goal. When we dress to cover, it's never going to be a good thing, and we will look shorter and we will look wider. We'll kind of look the opposite of what we really want to do. All right, so I will make a point to mark that book down and make sure that it's discounted a little bit. And I would recommend that you read it and understand it, and I'm happy to answer questions. Question number 6. If I was to make Sunny's top with red, white, and blue ITY knits, should I put the white up top? I think you recommend lighter colors near the face. Perfect. And this is an exact duplicate of kind of it. It just says it another way, and I think it's helpful. Lighter colors on top, darker colors on the bottom, and that way, and you notice with Sunny's top, all of those lines are actually diagonal, nothing's horizontal, so the flow of that top works really, really well. And when you bring in different colors, lighter color on top as you work toward the bottom. Okay. Anything I can answer questions on that? When shopping for a knit fabric, how can you tell if it's a good quality knit? You can't. You just can't. That's why I strongly recommend that you know where you're purchasing from. There's no way. I mean, it's like kind of, you can't feel fabric and tell if it's silk, because I'm going to call them imposters, have made polyester so touchable and so, duplicates silk so closely that you can tell by feeling. I'm burning all the time. Every fabric we put online, we burn. Because my fabric guys, they're telling me one thing, I want to make sure it's what they are. And sometimes, they make mistakes, sometimes we make mistakes, but certainly we burn every fabric and we're pretty close. But you cannot tell quality. You just cannot. If you burn it, and you can burn 100% cotton, generally 100% cotton is a cleaner quality because it's doing all the work. Anytime you have a lycra that's brought in, a lycra is a cheaper, kind of almost a substitute, if you will, to help that fabric do what it couldn't do normally. But you can't tell. Just know your vendors, know who you're buying from, and make sure you feel like their fabric is you know, worthwhile. Okay, question number 4. And again, I'm not going in order. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. How to alter a blouse pattern 600 to make a V or Y neckline. So I get a lot of questions on with a picture, and then how do I make this? And what pattern do I start with, and what changes do I need to make? So recognize, and part of the reason I wanted you to understand those categories is that we are a pattern company. We want to help you with your product, and we're going to assist you where we can with fit. And then we break off into some related categories. This is a pattern making question. And so when I get a question like this, I try to be kind and say, look, this is not what we do. There's no way we possibly have time to answer all the pattern making questions out there. But because we get so many is why I did the pattern making online class, which we've had tremendous success with. Many women say to me, I don't want to make patterns. I just want to know how to do this. But that is pattern making. That is pattern making. And so I think it's just misunderstood as to what pattern making is or what you have to do with it once you know how. Pattern making is a closed-ended subject. By that I mean that there is a finite amount of information that you have to learn in order to make it useful for you. I highly recommend it to everyone. The pattern making class is not something you can get into right now. We've already started it, but the pattern making DVD is available. It is extremely helpful. I don't care how young I look or how old I look or how curly I look. I don't care about any of that. The information is timeless and the information is accurate, and it will help you. So I can't encourage that enough. Not because I am a pattern maker, but I understand what it has done for me in my perspective of the seamstress and the sewing, and helped me understand where my weak spot was and where my strengths were. Now keep in mind, when I recommend this, none of what I have said in any of this information is my information. I need you all to know I didn't make it up. I didn't create it. In college, I was taught pattern making. Pattern making 101 is what it was. And I took pattern making and I loved it and I ate it up and yada yada. I've gone from there. What I teach in the pattern making class, what I teach in the pattern making video is the same exact information I was taught in college. It's literally what's used around the world. I haven't altered it. I haven't added to it. I haven't updated it. None of that is necessary. And I just want you to know that it isn't information that I've created, because some people say to me, oh, I love your way of doing things. It's not my way. I just simply recognized that it was not in the home sewing industry and it needed to be. And so I stepped up to bring it forward. Okay. Question number 14, if you don't mind. Question number 14. I've never heard you address at what point you transfer the muslin as your pattern to paper or use it as your pattern for future garments. On the broadcast, when you show your pattern and talk about what style changes you made, you don't show a muslin. You are always showing a white paper pattern. I'm wondering if I should cut out a couple of garments from them to be sure I like how the alteration adjustments turned out, and then cut it out on paper and use it as my pattern from then on. Okay, so this is a good chance for me to clarify, because obviously in this process I've not clarified. So I'm going to use this as an example. This is my my pattern. I hang it all on these pieces. What these patterns have been done for me is they've been fitted to me. I drape them on myself, and then in some cases, I leave them as fabric, and I use the fabric as my pattern. In some cases, if it's a stretchy knit or if it's, something that just won't hold up, then I'll trace it over time. I'll trace it, and this becomes my pattern. This means that this is my pattern. It's me with my alterations in it. Right angle on my shoulder, all those things in there. So that when I go to make style changes, my fit is already incorporated into this piece. I am not fitting every time I'm making those style changes. So that's why you don't see me doing it every time, because I'm not doing it every time, and I'm hopeful that you're not doing it every time also. So our bases, I'm going to use 195 as an example. 195 is our base sweater set. And once I fit that to myself, which I've done, and I go to make a style change on it, bam, that's it. All I need is a style change. In the beginning, I would recommend to you that you do make them up after you've made those changes, just as you mentioned. And what that will do is it'll just kind of gain your confidence. Wow, what I did here actually works here. And that is golden. So none of that should feel like time wasted. So I think that probably in my process, because I've done that and I know it's right because I've done it over and over, I don't probably say that enough, that I know this to be right and for me. And so you want to do that for yourself. So it doesn't matter whether you use this or whether you use your fabric. This base should include your fitting changes, and then as you make style changes, you could make them up to make sure they're right. The blouse I have on is classic blouse. So what I did is, I'll show you a few changes I made to it, but I knew it would be right because I knew the shoulder angle was right. I knew all of those things. And what I didn't know to be right, I went through and kind of made a checklist to double check, and I'll go through that process with you. Okay? All right, I hope that helps. Okay, so now let's go to question number 7, please. And again, don't panic. I'm not going in order simply because I grouped them as they came in. And I got to go faster. I'm too slow. I have taken your fitting classes and have my muslins, yet when I get a new pattern of yours and open it, my mind goes blank. I don't know how to carry over the changes from the muslin to the new pattern. I'm going to stop right there for a second. All right, so I picked this pattern up because I want you to recognize, actually, Benjamin, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and let me draw that. Let's bring up those pieces. We've got some pieces on here that I want to draw on, and I'm going to show you. Okay, so these pieces right here, I take the mouse, right? Yeah. Okay, so let me just show you alignment points. I'm going to go over to, this is the sweater set. Right there is center front. Right there is base of the neck. On every pattern you do, those are your 2 alignment points. Any new pattern that you go into, you should line up the center front and the base of the neck. That's it. Once you have those 2 points aligned, you follow the angle of the shoulder that's on yours, not the pattern you're purchasing. You follow the circumference and the armhole on yours, not the pattern you're purchasing, etc., etc. Center front, just like I showed, and that base of the neck, those are the 2 alignment points. Now, the reason I said to hold on to that question is because I'm going to read on the rest of it. It says, for instance, I purchased 4015. I looked at the pattern. I don't know how or to make changes to the shoulder. I just don't know where to start. I'm glad you had that YouTube video on 4015, which helped tremendously, but you don't have that for every pattern. So my question is there a way to transfer over the changes easily? Okay, so that is a yes or no answer. The reason I showed you in 195 those base, and that will hold true for jackets, that will hold true for many things. When you get into a pattern like 4015, in that pattern making process, if you notice, there's a cowl neck, there's pleats at the shoulder, there's a fullness at the waist. Every time all of those things happen and there's slashes and all those additions, there's a whole lot going on, okay? When there's that much going on, I wouldn't use a muslin to compare. I would make a fresh, clean muslin, and I would make a sample of that. However, if you are, and Benjamin, I'm good with that, if you are a silhouette pattern customer, what I say to you is the base of Sophia's dress is the same as 195, so that you will have an idea, because it's a knit dress and all knits are off of 195, so that you'll have an idea, oh, well, all I did was change the angle of the shoulder. So you could change the angle of the shoulder on Sophia's dress without aligning it. You don't necessarily have to align it. You just have to know what changes you made to 195. I hope that makes sense. I hope that I'm tying all that together. But there are times when there's so much going on, I would say to you, make the muslin to see if it's all okay, especially with a dress, because when I get into a dress, I've got tops and bottoms that I'm putting together that I've got to watch for sway back, and those things that can't be changed after the garment is made. Okay? All right, any questions that we want to kind of go over here before I go on? Can you address how the weight of the fabric is determined and where to find the weight on a bolt or a roll? The weight of the fabric is determined by a yard of fabric that is weighed on a scale. So I don't know that bolts have it. I don't know. I'm sure you've probably heard it referred to denim. Denim is always referred to as 6 ounce or 8 ounce or 10 ounce or 12 ounce. If you're trying to buy online from our site, we use the same. Trying to buy online from another site, I'm not sure how to help you because I don't know how they use. I haven't visited other sites to know enough about how they say their weight. Often when turning up a hem on a knit t-shirt, the hem does not lay smooth and has a ripple in it. What causes this? A ripple is generally when the fabric has been pulled. So sometimes we have a term that's called overhandling, and we put the hem in last, and we have a tendency to try it on and take it off and try it on and take it off, and we've stretched out the bottom of that t-shirt. Not in all cases, but I would, as I make a t-shirt, be careful of those edges and try, the goal is to really make the garment without trying it on. I know that may sound foreign to you right now. The reason I say that is when it is unfinished and has unfinished edges and we're putting it off and on and off and on, I've seen it in many workshops, we're overhandling that garment, and there's negative that comes from overhandling it. You got a lot of bias edges and a lot of edges that will stretch out. I wear a 38G bra, and I'm wondering if they make a strapless bra to fit me properly so I can wear more up-to-date clothing. Like, I don't know. I mean, I would go to a store that's a leader in bras. I think Nordstrom's is terrific. They're all over the country. I'm certainly not current on what they make in bras, but I know that we did a strapless top on Jeannie, and she's a G, so I know it can be done, but I don't know about bras and what can be done there. Are you referring to the basic pattern making DVD to start with? Not necessarily start with, but if you want to know patterns, that is your rules of patterns. The basic DVD and the pants, those two are the online class that we're doing. And so that's, if you're not in that online class, yes, I would strongly recommend those videos to understand the rules of patterns. Okay. Is there a guide that cross-references the base patterns to the various patterns? Yes. In the very front page of Silhouette Patterns, in the center column, it says Starter Pack. And if you click on that, that starter pack is all the base patterns. I think it's also in the FAQs, but I know it's in the starter pack. Those are our base knit, base woven, I had trouble with 40-15 on the back because of a rounded back and sway back adjustments. Is there an easy fix? Well, that is an easy fix. To slash horizontally and add, and then to take away sway back. Those are easy fixes. Does it get any easier? No. Those are as easy as they get. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's about as easy as they get. Okay, let's go to question number 11. All right. Can the sleeve from 195 be used on the woven tank 514? I just want to add a small sleeve cap to 514. 514, just to clarify for you, is a tank top. 195 and is a woven pattern, and 195 is a knit. So can this knit sleeve from 195 be used on a woven tank? All she wants is a cap. By definition of a cap, it just means the cap. It doesn't mean it goes all the way around. So in theory, you could take it from any pattern and put it on if you're not sewing it all the way around. If you're sewing it all the way around, then I need my template, and I would need my knit template, and I would need to put that onto my tank top. Easy enough? Okay. Question number 8. Thank you guys behind the scenes here. They're doing a marvelous job. How do you change the sleeve pattern when you want a larger sleeve circumference? For example, say a size 2 armhole and a size 4 sleeve circumference. Okay, so this is sometimes where I say to you, know what's out there, measure what's out there. Some women say to me, well, what I want, I can't find. There possibly is a reason you can't find it. Possibly not. Possibly just, you know, but I'm going to give you ways where you can try it. But you got to know, understand kind of what you're doing, be careful in the process so that you can test it out. So we're going to go through this hypothetical. Just to make sure everybody understands, is I'm going to have I've got a smaller body and I've got a larger upper arm. So here what she asked for, she wanted a 2 body and a size 4 sleeved. So she picked the 4 sleeve, and what I've told you repeatedly is the sleeve and the armhole get married and they go down the rest of their life always together. So she picked the size 4 armhole. But now she doesn't want that. She wants the 2 armhole. Okay. And, you know, as women, we want what we want. What can I say? Okay. So, Benjamin, can you put up the pictures? And I'm going to draw how to do this. Okay? But I promise you should go through the process. You can shortcut it however you want, but you should go through the process as I'm saying it, because that's the best way to get where you want to be and make sure you're successful. If you shortcut it, you might not be. Perfect. Thank you, sweetie. Okay, so you're going to start with we're going to say this is a size, thank you, this is a size 2. Okay, so I've got a 2 body. I'm going to come over here to the sleeve. That's a size 4. I'm going to make that up. And I would strongly recommend, that's why I say you're going to want to shortcut this. But I'm going to tell you what I would recommend. I would recommend you make that up, because then what you're going to say is, wow, this armhole is too low. I would like to make it higher. Now keep in mind, if we go back on this 2, what you did is you drew on the 4 armhole. I know that's a horrible exaggeration, but you did. You drew on the 4 armhole. The parts of the pattern that go together that correlate are from the notch to here, correlates the notch to here, and the notch to here correlates from the notch to there. When I am changing, I'm going to call this part right here A, and I'm going to make this part B. When I am changing A on the sleeve, I should change A on the armhole. When I am changing B on the sleeve, I should be changing B on the armhole. And don't change A and B on opposite parts. So, when I am wanting the armhole to be shorter, I am changing B. So if you come back to this portion right here, I want the armhole to be higher. I'm not changing B. I'm sorry, I'm not changing A, I'm changing B. I am shortening this part. Therefore, I should be shortening this part. And I will take and make a horizontal tuck, not a dart, a tuck, through the cap, and I will shorten the cap of the sleeve the same amount that I will raise up the armhole. Once I have it made, once I have it together, I can say I'd like this armhole to be smaller by X amount. If you know what you like, you can measure and say, wow, I want it 2 inches higher. And I can raise it 1 inch in the front, 1 inch in the back, and then that tuck across the cap would be 1 inch. In the process of doing that, there are 1 inch tuck becomes a 1/2 inch tuck. I mean, you know, you got to be careful of the math, but just know the relationship and work your way through it. If you make a mistake, you say, oh, I've made a mistake. I'll go back and I'll try it again. Sometimes it's good to put it aside for a while. But can I have what I want? Most of the time. Just sometimes we want such a small armhole. Sometimes the circumference is too great to have that short of a cap height. In some cases. Most of you, I think, will do absolutely fine. I have seen some cases in workshops where women want numbers that just aren't going to work together. They're just not. And, I mean, you'll find that out too. But if you understand those relationships and where you can change it, then you can get the most of what you can and get the smallest armhole you want for the largest circumference possible. Okay? Okay. That is pattern making and fitting and knowing those relationships. Okay, question. Oh, should I answer these? Your tops and blouse patterns have a really long armhole, but it doesn't have enough depth. When I raise my arm, sorry, all the blouse rises with the arm also. What should I do to eliminate this issue? An armhole raising is not anything to do with an armhole. It's everything to do with circumference. So mobility is circumference. And if I don't have enough mobility, I increase circumference, not decrease an armhole. So in my opinion, those are two different issues. All right? Is help available if I take the pattern making DVDs as though I take the live class? I mean, yes and no. No, probably is the answer. I'm always happy to answer questions as they relate to fitting. I cannot advise on pattern making simply because, you guys, what I'm trying to do with my time is make it work the best for as many as I can. It's not possible for me to answer pattern making questions. So yeah, I guess the answer would have to be no. I went to think that through. If you answer pattern making questions that have to do from the video and you're not in the class, I would not answer those questions. So no, I don't. Last night I was going through all the fabrics, adding to the cart to go back and buy. To my dismay, after some time, my cart was empty. What is the rule on emptying my cart? Sometimes we get distracted. Because we have the fabrics inventory, we have a new inventory system. You guys were working on the site. We're always improving it, and I appreciate your patience. We're getting search. We're getting all kinds of new features. But because we have inventory on those fabrics, it empties out, I believe, after an hour. I think we put it on 60 minutes where the cart is no longer valid. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Because in some cases our fabrics are just going too quickly, and if you want them, you kind of have to buy them, and if you don't, then sorry. Okay, I've looked over the website and cannot find a pattern starter pack anywhere. I know I've seen it before, but I can't find it. Where should I be looking? You should be looking in the very front page, in the very center column, at the bottom of that column. It will be there. All right? Okay, question number 10, if we can go to that one. My shirt. My shirt is riding up toward my neck. I recently started breastfeeding. Do you think I need a larger cup size? I feel killer. I feel what? I feel the killer. It's hard to show. Oh, okay. Hard to show in pictures, but it's choking my neck after a few minutes. I'm constantly pulling it down. Okay, so in this question, let's separate out L, C, and D. Whenever I change cup size doesn't too small of circumference. Well, let me just help. Sorry, let me just go. The back is convex. That means it's rounded. It sticks out, not concave. So it's convex. When the back is convex and doesn't have enough space from the blouse, from the knit, from whatever I have, because I move and it gets longer and broader and all those things, it is going to take the length it needs from the front. So, although, having said that, it isn't a length issue, it's a depth issue. And I need to slash the back and just take the same top you've worn so that you can kind of show yourself, oh my goodness, this worked. My favorite things are when you guys ask questions and I give you those solutions and you come back and say, this was just so easy. Why didn't I think of this? Don't go there. But just take the back of the top you're wearing even, because if it's going to drive you crazy, you can't wear it anyway. Take the back right through the blades and slash and put 3/4 of an inch. So I think y'all know what I'm talking about. They're doing something for a minute. Slash the back horizontal and put a 1/2 inch center back taper to nothing at the armhole. And do that in the very top you're wearing, and just put a piece of fabric in there, pin it down or sew it down. I don't care how bad it looks. What you want to do is, does it solve my problem? And don't go to another top. Again, if that top is pulling back so bad, you probably hate it. And, like you said, it's a killer. You hate it. It has nothing to do with breastfeeding. It has nothing to do with cup sizing. It has everything to do with the fact that the back does not have enough depth and it will pull the front backwards. Okay? So just try there and let me know. That was number 10. And we're going to go to number 12. All right, I need to get faster. Okay. I have a rounded back, so I put these together. I watched the video for Giorgio's top and replayed it, where you address this issue several times. I still don't understand how to address this problem. I understand how to cut from center to almost armhole, but when two pattern pieces are not there, what do? You just keep cutting until you can get to, for instance, Giorgio's top is a princess seam and it has a kimono. So go all the way to the armhole seam, or to the sleeve. It doesn't matter if you go farther. It will naturally fit your body. Just add the length you need at center back, taper to nothing, go all the way out. And it's not a stupid question, and you're not missing the obvious. I don't think that's an easy question at all. I think it's a good question. Okay, number 13, if you don't mind. I'm a new follower of yours. I've heard you suggest using Coca-Cola treatment on linen. Do you recommend it on any other fibers? The top I have on is linen, and I washed it in Coca-Cola. And I'll wash it again and again in Coca-Cola because it keeps getting softer every time you do it. I recommend it on denim. I recommend it on anything that's woven that you feel like you want a little bit of softness to. My brother-in-law has, kind of harsh fabrics irritate his skin, and he took his overalls and washed them and washed them and washed them, and he said, hey man, this is pretty cool. He goes, they're just so soft now. I love them. So it's not going to impact knits, but anything that's woven, and I'm not sure the scientific part of it, so I can't help you with that. But anything that you feel like is too stiff, it will not hurt. Throw it in the washing machine with Coca-Cola. See if you like the results. Okay? Okay, number 9, please. I was one of the fortunate ladies that went with you this past April on the New York fabric buying trip. We had an amazing time. What an awesome experience it was. Thank you. I hope to go on another trip in a year or two. I'm still drooling over my stash. I have a question for you about a serger. I'm looking to upgrade my serger. I was wondering what serger you use and would recommend the Baby Lock air threading type. Is this something you would comment on? I would appreciate it. No worries if you prefer not to recommend a particular model. My PBS show is not backed by any sewing machine company. So for me, I use a Viking sewing machine and I use a Baby Lock serger. I think that Baby Lock does an outstanding job on self-threading. However, I'm going to warn you that when we get a self-threader, I have one, I use it all the time, I'm going to caution you that we get a little lazy. I would recommend that if you buy a serger, wherever you buy it from, go and do the classes that they give you so that you know your machine well. I do have a Viking serger. I use 2 sergers just because it's a little bit faster than changing thread. But more, I would recommend the ease. I think Baby Lock is a tremendous product, but I would not be lazy enough to not understand that threading. Push yourself to learn the classes and learn what's going on. Okay. I want to talk about the online fitting class just briefly. I know we're at time, but I want to show you what's behind me too. The online fitting class is recorded and then put up online. You're able to view it for a period of 3 months. It is not, you don't have to be there to watch it. I think there's some misunderstanding. What we're going to do is take tops, tank tops and t-shirts, and we're going to go through the fabric first, fabric pattern choices, exactly what like you're saying tonight. Then we're going to go through size selection. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to go through and drape models. Then we're going to go through and do armholes and sleeves. And so I think it's really comprehensive. It's $99. We've made it very affordable. And of course there's a fitting and questions and that whole part there. I wanted to show you some fabric pattern combinations just because this is such a fun time to sew. I just can't stay away from my sewing machine. I don't know what else to tell you. What I have on is a brown linen. It's fabric 1267 because you'll always ask me. I did a kimono top out of 600. So I took the classic 600 or 618. If you have either one, doesn't make a difference. And I made the kimono sleeve first. Very, very simple to do. I've showed you how to do that. I'm going to kind of show you again. You take the sleeve, you fold it in half, and you take the top, and you take both front and back, and you overlap it here, and you make sure there's a gap under the armhole, and you cut that all in one. All right. So when I cut it all in one, you've got only 4 pieces now. You've got front facing, the collar, the front, and the back. That's it. The little gathering that's here at the sleeves, most of the time I say to you, gather 1.5 to 1. I did a 2 to 1 because the sample that I saw and I just really liked it was fuller. When you're doing 2 to 1 and you're doing a linen, what you want to be careful of is not to double this. So I used the selvage. I didn't even have to hem it. Just use the selvage. It'd also be cute with different fabrics as the ruffle or at the bottom. I put a little crystal on here and I just love it. I mean, throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer. The drawstring is on the outside. And I cut it longer so that I could wear it with leggings. I don't know if you all can see, it's long in the back. And I've got my jean leggings on, okay? I wanted to show you a couple things I had seen because there's such strong trends, especially lace. I cannot say lace enough, and we have some beautiful laces. So I made this. This is 212. We also have a new pack out. There are 3 patterns. It's called the Summer Trends pack. And these are 3 different laces plus a fabric. So the cotton fabric that I used, I'm going to give you numbers, and we'll have them up after the website, but I want to give you numbers because you'll email me and ask me, is 1657, and the lace is 1659. So right here for the body, I put the white cotton knit under the lace because I didn't want that to be see-throughable. This is actually the yoke I cut is the cotton, and then I used the 1 inch wide. It's 1738. It's just a 1 inch wide lace instead of the zipper, and I put it on the edge. And then on the ends here, I just overlapped it and stitched it together. I love this top. On the bottom, I didn't put anything, so you'll see your little leggings right through it. And then on the very bottom, I put the 4 inch wide lace. So you can see it has a border down there, and that's number 1002. Okay, so those are the numbers. So there's 3 different laces and then a cotton knit. The point I want to make to you with doing this is I'm really surprised when I go to the store how many laces are mixed and matched. They're beautiful. They're really, truly beautiful. So don't think that, oh, it doesn't quite match or it doesn't do this. I just love it. I mean, I just love it. Okay, this one right here is just, all I did was use any of your sweater sets. I used, you know, the sweater set, a Condosa's top base. You can use Sunny's top, any of those bases. This fabric is reversible. It's fabric number 1771. And so when we filmed PBS last week, and Billy Burke is a lady that I've long admired, and she's an amazing seamstress, and she did a little segment on seam embellishing, seam finishes. And when she took and did a fabric that was 2-sided, this is just the seam. So you're going to sew the sleeve into the garment with the wrong sides together and the seam to the outside like you would do a French seam. Then you press the seams open, I did 3/8, and you top stitch these down. So the neck comes to the outside. Notice the one sleeve light, the one sleeve dark, because it all lends to this whole asymmetric look, and I just absolutely love it. It's so simple but so stunning. So this down here is simply a piece of fabric cut. Another one has to be cut because you have to get the wrong side out. And then the seam is made, the seam allowance is opened, and then stitched down on each side is all that is. But you can see that you can create so many great style lines, it's endless. But I wanted to pass on that idea to you because I think, you know, just some simple idea, I just really love the way it looked. So that's 1771. Any reversible knit will work like that, and there's tons to use like that. Okay, so questions. It would be nice to have a wish list available on the website. It is. If you go in and create a customer account, you're able to put a wish list there in your customer profile. You have to have an account to do that, but there is. What is the approximate gap between blouse body and sleeve when making a kimono? Approximately 1 inch. It can be more or less. It can't be less, but it can be more, but that's approximate. How did you do the casing? I did my casing on the outside because that's so trendy right now. Literally the fabric, and I use the selvage, is right on the outside and just serged on top. What makes the sparkles on the top you're wearing? The camera close-up. The sparkles are the black crystals. We have regular crystals, and then we have the black crystals, and I put black crystals on. I didn't put a lot. There you go. You can see that on each side I just put a few little crystals, just because the top was the brown knit done with black trim. Those, I just really wanted a little pop. Not a question. Not a question. Yeah, we actually, now that, thanks for saying that, we actually have another camera here. And tonight probably was not a night to introduce. Is it on? Yeah, it's not the night to introduce it, but we've got it behind the scenes. We've got it actually plugged in, but there's a few little tweaks we're working on. But we will have the second camera for close-ups, and not sure when. Like I said, we're still working on that kind of stuff. But thanks for that suggestion. Great suggestion, by the way, because we were right there with you. So we appreciate that. We will have a second camera, and it'll be for close-ups, exactly that thing. All right, so I think you know everything I know, and hopefully here's a place where you can come back and review and go from there. And I really love what I'm doing. I appreciate all of you being there, and you know, helping you is just simply what I enjoy. So thanks so much for being here. You know, our goal is happy sewing. Thanks. Bye.